unless these were emailed. This is the first time I've seen it.
News to me as well.
But I was offered the job, but I turned it down because maybe one of them
$9,000 difference.
said, I thought you were the teacher.
Yeah, just bring them down to me or just forward it to me.
Yeah, I think it's 40. So yeah, that's the original. It's 54.
Good evening. I would like to call our July 23rd meeting to order. If you guys will please rise and join us for a prayer and the pledge.
Will you pray with me? Our gracious Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this day. We're thankful for the many blessings you have given us each and every day, Father. We pray that you continue to be with us as we discuss the matters concerning the city. We pray that you'll give us wisdom and discernment on these things, and pray that we'll make the best decisions possible for the citizens of this community. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could have been flashing lights on us.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Lewis.
Here.
Chairman Pro Tem Kennedy.
Here.
Councilwoman Opplinger.
Here.
Councilwoman Pettit.
Here.
Councilman Blades.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. So I have 3 folks who have signed up for public comment. I'm guessing this is all in relation to the alley easement. Is that accurate? Okay. So if you guys are okay with that, we'll wait until we get to that portion. That way it makes sense for that. Council forum, Mr. Protein.
Have you park events the last, I guess it's been almost a month since we met. So we had the hydrant party right out here in the front of City Hall, which was a huge success. There was, with this event and Touch a Truck that I'll talk about in a minute, it's really hard to gauge attendance at those things because you can come at them in any direction. There's no entry fee, there's no tickets or anything like that. We do know Liberty brought 300 popsicles and left early because they were out. So there was, if anybody came down here, the whole lawn was full, the street was full. It was a great time, and we had perfect weather for it. We had a park board meeting last week, and then this past Saturday we had the Touch a Truck event at Oak Park, which was also wonderful weather and resounding success. We had hundreds and hundreds of kids out there. A special thanks for both of those to the Park Street and Fire Department and Police Department that show up to these every time and help us out with whatever they need. Those guys are great, and of course at the Touch a Truck they brought the fire trucks, police trucks, and a front loader. So kids really seem to love the front loader too. So that's right. So, and outside of that's all I have.
Mr. Blades.
So I will be attending the Bright Futures Board meeting this Thursday. We're going over the final plans for the Back to School Bash, August 6th from 4:30 to 7. And I'll be at the Chamber Golf Tournament on Sunday. So.
Okay.
Did that council planning meeting, didn't we all do that as well?
Yep.
Okay.
How about that? Yeah.
Hospital board meeting is another exciting one that we did. A bunch of us do come and dine, Carrie, Kami, Kim, me, every Monday, and that's pretty exciting. And last thing I'll say is Carrie Howlett today, she got a beautiful plaque at Rotary for being our past president, and she accepted the secretary's job, so what an amazing kid you are.
I missed the airport board meeting because I was on my way to a funeral in Kansas City. I went to the council planning meeting. I had somebody reach out to me about something we've discussed before, and it's getting a bench for Oak Park that I thought that the Lions Club had donated or somebody had donated. But they took a picture of themselves sitting on the ground and said, "Where's the bench?" So I would like to have an update on that. Tony, do you know anything about that?
I don't, but I can get an answer at the next meeting.
Council minutes looks like we discussed it in April. So anyway, and I was somebody reached out to me, I guess it was Deb and Nikki reached out to me about the park board and their funding issues, so I'm curious on how that came out. Because they have a separate fund, did anything get resolved on that?
So we're working through the process, or they're working through the process. Essentially, the hang-up is, or the issue is, whenever you have an organization like that issuing checks to the city, and then the city writes those checks, that becomes part of the auditing process, and there's extra hands that have to be involved for really no business of the city in terms of a financial responsibility, because they're just passing that through. So they're looking into the possibility of creating a 501c3 for the parks,
Okay.
basically as a Friends of the Parks or kind of a parks organization that would allow them to kind of do those events and work with the community foundation, so that way we don't have to involve the city budget and all that. Then they take donations directly there, and they can kind of determine how they want to do that. So
Okay,
I don't know what the process is. We have a meeting once a month, so it's kind of, we get
Right.
updates as it goes along, but that's their current state, is they're working down that path.
okay. Okay, I went to a solid waste meeting also, I think it was last week. Nothing really new to report there. And I have a question, as you're driving through town, I don't know if there's anybody in here has received a code violation for tall grass. But I feel like MoDOT needs to get one, because aren't they responsible for like Business 60 as it goes through town? That is embarrassing. And also too, on Elliott Street, there are some really high weeds. So how do we address that? Can they not give us like an money annually for us to do it ourselves? Because I mean, it's awful.
We've contacted them and had conversations with them the last 3 years, and that's about as far as it goes. We typically see them within 2 to 3 weeks after we make a phone call.
Do you typically see them mowing, you mean? Okay. So we don't know when the last time we've contacted them, because it looks really bad.
Yeah, we've contacted them, I know, within the last month.
So it's past the 3 weeks. Anyway, well, that's all I have to report.
Thanks, Teresa. I also stopped by the hydrant party on the way to the P&Z meeting and then after. So great turnout. Looked really fun and inviting. And had I not had P&Z meeting, probably would have taken advantage of it. But so that's all I have. Moving on to the consent agenda. That will be the regular session minutes from June 25th, the work session minutes from July 11th, along with June and July appropriations.
Get to my list here.
I have a question, if that's okay,
Of
about
course.
that, the appropriation. I noticed, I asked today, Kami, for some invoices and such, but what grant is the attorneys helping us work on? It was in like June and July, I think. I didn't know what grant that was.
I'd have to go back and look at it.
Okay,
I know we have a grant for the emergency response plan, and there was a memorandum of understanding involved with that. I'm not sure if that's what that's in relation to. or not,
okay.
but-
I was just kind of curious.
I think that,
I was just curious what grant we had going on.
We
Well-
do have one for that emergency response plan that we partnered with SimCog on, and
Okay.
we're working on that right now.
Okay.
If that's not it, then just let us know. Otherwise, we'll assume
Yeah.
that's what it is. Any other questions?
We'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda containing the approval of minutes for June 25th, 2024, the approval of minutes for the work session, July 11th, 2024, the July 2024 appropriations.
I'll
Second.
second that. Oh, go ahead, Josh. Josh, second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Moving on to old business, 7.1 Recreation Center Monument Sign.
Council, you have proposals there from the different groups, starting with the original that was submitted by Sign Designs for the $54,000. Want to cover a couple things with you a little bit. As just by way of reminder, I just wanted to remind you how we came to be with the sign that we did approve out at 60, the intersection of 60 and 60. As you know, we put out a request for proposals. We sent those out, we advertised them, and we sent the announcement for request for proposals to different sign shops I think we probably sent out about 10 or 12 to sign shops around Springfield area, also down into Branson as well. And out of that, we got the sum total of 3. And with those, one of those was out of state down in Georgia. And so looking at the signs themselves, I brought that to you and what those were, and we had discussions. And the request at that time was that if there's one here that we kind of like, let's work with them directly as we would a vendor to get them to a place where we like, a final design that we like to a price that we like. And we were able to do that. Through that process, I believe that the original, it came in at about $50,000 because it did include a sign, an electronic sign at that time. You guys were concerned about the sign from the standpoint of that our budget was about $30,000 and that it exceeded that quite a bit. So at that point in time, the discussion that you guys had was, let's just get rid of the sign as far as the electronic messaging portion of it and just go with the basic sign. The end result of that was that the final price that was approved by you was for $22,000. So that means that the sign itself was, the electronic messaging part was about $30,000. Looking and having the discussions with all of these groups, all of these different vendors, came back to the same thing, is that the sign was about, the electronic messaging sign was probably going to be in the neighborhood of about $35,000 just for that. So taking the $35,000 from the $54,000, looking at that, that was not much of a markup concerning that. So the question was posed to me that, well, why did we not go out for bid? Basically from that, again, that standpoint of that we already had somebody that we were looking for, that was meeting our expectations, knowing that the response from before was not a good response, and then also just, all right, branding, and we're going to kind of continue that. So that would be my response of why we didn't go back, or that I didn't put that out for bid, is just to kind of build and continue what we had already started. So the council was interested in looking at different vendors to see if we could get a lower price. One thing I will say is that in the interest of fairness, I went back to knowing that the end result was going to be probably a lesser sign than the original that was submitted by Sign Designs. I went back and asked Sign Designs specifically to we're looking for a lower price. Could you redesign something? And he said certainly he appreciated the opportunity. So, and then we contacted several others. And I worked with them over the last several weeks, meeting with them out at the site and different things like that. And so we came to the final proposals. All of them indicated that the biggest, the largest, the most expensive portion of the signs is going to be the electronic messaging. And to take a look at that is all of them repeated the same thing. It's going to be mid-30s for that to have a double sign out there. So one other aspect I will say is that there was concern about a $40,000 budget that was stated in the in SAP Designs as we kind of went over things. One thing I would say is that I'm not so sure that was very heavily vetted, is that was just a placeholder put in there, because as talking to Steve about this, he said, yeah, if we would have talked about it and gotten some knowledge, we probably would have bumped that up a little bit more. And so I was kind of under the understanding that had maybe already been done. It had not. It was just kind of just a basic number, just kind of placed in there as a placeholder. Because again, if we would have said, all right, the basics is just for the electronic messaging is going to be mid-30s, we certainly would have bumped that up a little bit. So from that standpoint, I will take whatever, and I'm not looking for a decision tonight. We're not asking for a decision tonight. It's not in resolution form. This is a discussion. Tell me who you would like to work with. We can finalize any details, finalize the final design and the pricing, and bring that back to you.
So, I'll kick us off. I think, the adjustment sign designs made, I think, is good. And I think we could even, probably add some stone to that if we wanted to maybe match the look and feel. But I got to thinking also, I assume that we're gonna need a sign, or there will be a sign as part of, if that doesn't already happen, on the rec center itself. And I guess I was wanting to make sure that we don't counter, the look and feel. You mentioned look and feel and aesthetics of having, our city sign with what's the rec center is going to look like, and the color and the finish. I think it would be more important for those two things to match than for this to match what's out by the highway, right? So I just wanted to, I guess, bring that up and get your thoughts.
Yeah, that is exactly right, is that is going to be something that, as far as when you go around to the front side of it, there will be letters that say Aurora Recreation Center up there. And so we had that discussion with them, because we talked about this a little bit as well with Stephen, and then also Branco a little bit. Because when we first started talking about it, Branco said right out of the gate, they said, well, we have a recommendation of who we thought, and it was going to be Sign Designs. So we thought that was kind of a good omen a little bit. But also, we would be working with them to get whoever we work with to try to get that to match closely as possible, so that there's not too much of a contrast, that they can kind of complement each other. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Did we, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Did we get, so last time I talked about connectivity for that, because it does show it's, the sign design side of it shows it's cloud controlled. I just noticed on Impact's quote, they do specifically say it's provided via Verizon cellular communication at no charge for the lifetime of the display. Did we get an answer from Sign Designs on how theirs is connected?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. So I did ask him specifically, is that it's a wireless and a wireless interface there. I did ask that specifically.
Okay.
and he
I
said-
think as long as we
said it
confirm that's
was.
cellular wireless and not Wi-Fi wireless, I think we're good to go. But I think
Okay.
if it's not, then we probably have some question about how we get connectivity to it. That'll be some additional cost. But
Okay.
I would assume if their competitors are doing it with Verizon, I'm guessing that's probably what it, or cellular, that's probably what it is. But I'd like to confirm that with him to make sure.
Okay.
You put it in, we put power to it, there's connectivity. We don't have to do any trenching or add any extra connectivity.
Okay.
Couple things I want to bring up. Every town has vandalism, so, and we're not immune to that. Is there a concern if we do a more closer to the ground sign than something that's elevated?
Yeah.
I
I
mean-
wouldn't say any more of a concern. I would say just a concern overall. We do have a concern about that, and I was asking about the impact resistance to this. Gunfire, that is what it is, but impact is as far as things, and it does. I can't remember but they did say, every one of them said that yes, that has a pretty good, a very good strong impact resistance.
Okay, so, because I was gonna say, of all the designs I've seen, this is the one I like the best, just because it's higher up off the ground, but yet being high, because of vandalism, but being higher up the ground, I'm not sure that makes it gonna be easier to read, as you're driving down the road and having to look up. I don't know.
I'm also trying to. One thing is that I've experienced where lights in a park, lights in a city parking lot and stuff. We get a ton of. I've experienced getting a ton of complaints about lights from, especially when it's in the neighborhoods and off of a main drag. Is that I think that that I want to make sure that we're being considerate of our neighbors. Because that is going to be, it's going to be facing like north, it's going to be facing east and west. It's going to be running perpendicular south and north and south. So I have concerns if we're raising it that it's going to be shining into the neighborhoods into the neighbors and stuff like that. Lower, I think that especially as that's in a lower, that it'll be dimmed a little bit. So I have some concerns about that and just the impact that we're gonna have. Because all those trees where the old house was gonna be, we're gonna be taking all of those out of there so that it has some clearance so people can see it and stuff, so.
Okay.
And we are raising it a little bit because it's going to be up off, and it's not gonna be ground level, it is gonna be raised just a little bit.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we have, not all of these are apples to apples. I would like to know what the warranty information is, what the pixel is, and all that. It seems like Impact has provided the most information, but it's fairly close to the DPI. I mean, I want to know what the warranty is on the display and in providing, I think it was, which one had a lifetime? For instance, Impact has a 1 year on the sign warranty, whereas DPI, it's a 5-year. Verizon has a lifetime on Impact on the digital part. The size difference of the screens, one screen in one company is 7 feet by 8, the other one is 4, most of them are 4 by 8. I just want to make sure we're getting, you know, the same information to compare.
Okay.
So,
Feel comfortable or pressed for time if we review this for that type of, because that's kind of what I'd like to look through too. I know, like, I noticed the same thing. I was looking at the pixel density and stuff like that. I'd like to take a look at it and then be able to make a recommendation.
I can come back and get all that information, put it in a matrix.
Well, I think a lot of it's in there. I just haven't had time to really dig through
Yeah.
all of it, so.
I like two, but I think just us having some time
yeah,
to read through that would be fantastic, so.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for providing that, Joe.
Yep, thank you.
Moving on to new business, 8.1, oath and pinning of a new officer, Taylor Morrison.
Raise your right hand. Do you, Taylor Morrison, solemnly swear that you possess all the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of police officer, that you will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Missouri, the provisions of all laws of this state affecting cities of the third class, and the ordinances of the city of Aurora, Missouri, and that you will faithfully demean yourself while a police officer of the city of Aurora, Missouri, so help you God?
I did.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Taylor.
Welcome.
We're happy to have you. All right. 8.2, resolution number 2024-1986, hospital board appointment, Patty Cottrell. Any questions?
I will make a motion to accept resolution 2024-1986 for Patty.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Thank you, Patty, for volunteering. Please vote.
Motion passed.
Did you want to say anything?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I was not even looking up.
You know, in front of the shooting gallery here,
Yeah.
you know, like,
That's back there.
oh, my bad, okay.
Yeah. Thank you for
Thank you.
volunteering. Next up, 8.3, ordinance number 2024-3326, vacate alley.
Good evening, council. This request comes by formal application by Francisco Ibarra, and this was heard by your Planning and Zoning Commission on July 2nd at their regularly scheduled meeting. You should see in the agenda packets that were included in your agenda, we have an image that shows pretty well inside a blue rectangle where this topic alley is at. So I want to start by my initial presentation to the Planning and Zoning Commission just addresses that RSMO 88.637 of the Missouri State statutes is what governs vacations of public places. And this applicant is requesting to vacate the platted undeveloped alley. And that was our initial consideration for this request, was that it is a platted alley, but it is not formally developed or maintained by the city. And with that being the case and no expectation of future development onto the west of this alley area that's in question, recommendation was originally approval by your staff. When we had our initial application process, we sent out the public hearing notices to property owners within 185 feet, and we had no response from the community, with the exception of one prior to the meeting. However, at the meeting, we did have several people attend from the community and in that neighborhood. I believe some of them are present tonight, and I'll obviously allow them an opportunity to speak to you, but I believe you're going to hear them say that they do utilize this alley, even though it's undeveloped, for entry into garages that face that alley that are in their rear yard. So we are tasked in my department to try to decide if something that's undeveloped should be a continuous thing for neighborhoods to utilize if it wasn't intended to be used for that because it wasn't developed, or if it was just something that was platted and should have been. So with that being the case, we try to take those things into consideration, but I was not aware of the amount of use, the volume of use that this alley does get by this neighborhood at that time. So after hearing their comments and concerns during the public comment in relation to that, we took that back, had a couple of conversations within my department. I'm unable to make contact with the property owner now because he's out of the country currently. But I believe there is an option on the table that he might be willing to give a perpetual easement to these property owners. He is just looking for, basically, he can't meet the setbacks with his proposed development because of this alley. So he's just looking for the vacate of this alley because he would be able to build a little closer to that than he would otherwise. So he would throw in an option for a perpetual easement for these property owners so they could still utilize that even after his development. And that could be something that could be pending as part of this. However, your staff is kind of in the middle. I'm looking for future development within our community, and it's an undeveloped alley. However, I am sensitive to the needs of the citizens that are already utilizing it. With that being the case, your Planning and Zoning Commission, the motion to approve this to council failed. You'll see in their minutes that there was a 4-2 and then 1 absent. So their recommendation is not to approve this vacate. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have for me, and if you have none, then I will allow the community to speak.
So I just kind of want to address you all and them as well. So I initially voted yes, but I feel I was wrong in that vote after driving back by the alley and looking at the properties. The garages probably don't meet our code and whatever, we could argue that, but they're there, right? And you use them, and I don't think they should be taken away. I would love to see either the easement option or us give a variance to the developer. We've given variances to developers that are building, lots of homes in our community, so we should probably consider it for the small guy as well. And it's an alley, so there's already things that don't meet setback in said alley. So we're really following suit with what's already there, in my opinion. So whatever would make sense of those two options, I think that would be the best bet. And so just wanted to tell you, I don't know if you guys still want to speak, but I would recommend not approving this and going with one of those two options.
And the option for a variance is one that was mentioned to the property owner. He just wanted to start this direction. Of course, his hopes are for the vacate of the alley, but I believe that he would entertain a secondary option if that were where we ended up.
How far off the variance is he?
About 2 foot.
So if you vacate an entire alley, how is that changing his plan? Was he just coming that 2 feet, or is he planning on
No,
encroaching?
he would still, he indicates that I don't have formal plans for this secondary structure yet. But conversations, he indicates that even if we were to vacate the alley, he would still just utilize that 2 foot. So I don't anticipate that he would move any further that direction. That's not what he's indicated, but I don't have formal
That's what I'm
application.
trying to get at. So
Sure.
say, you make this variance, or we make this permanent exclusion variance, or whatever you're talking about, and then there's a structure that goes up there and makes it unusable. I don't think there's any protection from that if we vacate it, right? I mean,
Right.
so,
Right.
yeah.
That's one reason I would lean towards the setback variance. Is that the right term?
It is. It's a variance to our setbacks, and just know, council, that when I consider these things, when they're brought before me, variances are typically for a piece of property that has a topographic characteristic that's abnormal. So it's got some kind of something to the layout of that land, the way it slopes, or something that can't be done constructually to fix it. So variances are not something I want to make a habit of.
Yeah.
So that's why I always try to look at other options first, because I want to make sure we adhere to our code as much as possible. In scenarios like this, when I think we have an opposing side that has a very valid point, then I think that is a valid option, and would be something that I'm happy to try to accommodate if that's the route we need to go.
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable with that, and that way we maintain the alley. It's protected, no matter who owns what property, where, whether it's you all relatives, you sell it, he sells it, owns it, whatever. There's no change in that. If we went the other way, would that possibly make that a sticky situation in the future at some point?
Possibly, and I guess another area that brings a little bit of concern for me is it's an undeveloped alley, so the city doesn't consider it to be utilized until this issue was raised.
Yeah.
So now we're aware of that. So if there's a concern with, should that be developed now? We've had these conversations previously, not so long ago in history, of people wanting us to go ahead and develop an alley or a street
Right.
that was platted, but we don't do that because that should have been on the developer. So I guess my concern would be, if we're gonna leave this an alley for the record and we're not going to vacate it, I wouldn't, unless the council gives other direction, I wouldn't anticipate any expectation to change the current state of said alley.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
It does.
I would just wanna put that on your mind.
I was hoping to see plans of what he was planning on doing.
And unfortunately, by code, I can't require that
Okay.
because it's not specific to his vacate request.
Right.
So we haven't made it to that point yet.
Okay.
I believe he would provide them if we asked for such,
Okay.
because he's not in any way hard to work with. So I can certainly ask for that, but they just haven't been asked because it wasn't part of the formal request.
Okay.
So I'm going to not make a motion and let this go unless someone else feels the need to make one.
Do we need to make a motion to,
Just let it'll just
Dies
die
on
out.
Alexa.
okay.
Okay. No?
Okay. Was there anybody in the audience that needed to speak about anything?
I feel like you've answered most of the questions.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a concern with parking back there. We access our field. There aren't a lot of entrances to get to our field with a tractor as big as the gentleman that takes care of it needs to use, except that gate. And if people start parking and blocking it, the alley, I mean, because I don't know how he wants, I don't know, and they are lovely people. They're very good neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know what his plan is.
Mm-hmm.
And all I can think is, if you have two apartments in one building, you have at least probably 2 cars a side, maybe more if you have young drivers, or you live with your parents, or, there's so many scenarios anymore, children coming home, parents, aging parents. Where are all those vehicles going? Are you gonna be able to get a tractor down there to get to the fields? Are you gonna be able to get to your garage? Or
And so
that's a big concern for me. And also on, Harrison, there's a gray house on the left side where they've already parked 4 deep sometimes because they have no driveway, they have nothing. And when it rains, you can't use the yard. So if that starts happening on both sides,
So
visibility around any of those corners is already like, I just avoid it.
Yeah.
If I see all the cars, I just avoid it. But I'm concerned about things just piling up and becoming unsafe for.
And I know this probably feels all connected, but as far as parking, I don't know that would have too much of a bearing on the variance it's in front of us. But I do think we have code in place that would answer any of your parking concerns. They would still need to meet all the same code requirements that any other.
Yeah, we have
That-
occupancy limitations specific to R2 housing, and we also have parking requirements in our R2 housing. So if they're
Yeah.
building a structure that's for R2, they have to show us in their plan sets the parking spaces that will allow for the number of occupancy that's allowed in the code. That was very wordy.
Yeah.
But we do have that in place, and it will be part of the plan review.
And they wouldn't be able to block an alley.
Right,
Well, and the setback doesn't mean that that'll even be going in the alley, it's just
Right.
closer to the alley.
right.
What's the current setback over there?
10.
It would be 8 feet still from the alley line.
So, okay.
Well, guys, I'll tell you, I've lived in that neighborhood my whole life, you gotta know it. That alley, you're right, it's never been developed. Since it's not developed, Miguel, which she says is a very hardworking, fine young man. When he comes home at 10 o'clock at night, that vehicle stops right there in that alley until next morning. Somebody has a fire, you don't get down that alley. It needs to be made into a real alley. That way he cannot park there. He can't leave his vehicle there.
And,
He's got his brother
and I,
right behind him.
again, I think we're way off from the variance consideration. I understand what you're saying. I think that's a code issue that we could probably bring up with the chief, and if there's a parking, someone's,
If it's not a registered alley, pretty much can do what he wants, right?
It is platted, it's just not developed.
An alley, just not maintained.
so,
I just want to say, my mom and dad bought that house, their house, and been there for 50 years, and that alley used to really be used a lot. It's not as much anymore, because like they said, it does get blocked, but like even on holidays, they live on a dead-end street, so when all the family comes over, I mean, we even park in the back alley, just because it's so crowded up front, so, that's another concern, if that's taken away, that's there, but as far as the alley, yes, that's their way of getting into the backyard, sewer, trimming trees, working on the house. That's their way of getting in there. So I just appreciate, if it's not turned in, taken away. That's my concern.
understood, yeah, and I don't think that's the intention. When I went back and looked and drove down it, it changed my vote, and my thought on it, so, yeah. Okay, any other questions? We'll let that one die on the vine, and we'll move on to 8.4, ordinance number 2024-3327, amending section 235060, Aurora Hospital Board officers.
Council, this is just a simple change. It was said in August to make that change as far as appointing the officers that they self-appoint. But they don't meet in August, they meet in July. So it's just getting us in sync with the quarterly meetings. That's all this is.
Perfect.
Make a motion to approve. I'm sorry, anybody have any questions before we take on?
No,
All right.
perfect.
I make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2024-3327, amending section 235.060, Aurora Hospital Board officers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Special event application, movie night at White Park.
Council, this comes to you from Nikki Kennedy with the Park Board. She's present. I believe this will be just pretty much a repeat of the previous movie night at White Park, scheduled to be September 28th, and will be maintained within the softball field. No concerns from staff, and recommendation is approval. Did I miss anything, Nikki?
Make a motion that we accept the special event application for movie night at White Park.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion passed.
Thank you. 8.6, special event application back to school bash at Aurora Nursing Center.
Council, this one comes by formal application from the Aurora Nursing Center staff. This is scheduled to be August 16th and is a back-to-school event to be held there at the Aurora Nursing Center. It will all be contained on private property. However, they are requesting our police department and our fire department to attend, have vehicles there, and just have some goodies to hand out for the kids. So it comes before you tonight because they are asking for our staff presence. Police and fire both have no concerns, and staff recommendation is approval.
Awesome.
Okay.
Make a motion we accept the special event application about back to school bash at the Aurora Nursing Center.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion passed.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Carrie.
Staff reports. John.
police department, the PD staff attended the big rig event, and it was very well attended. I think, as it was said, it was estimated about 300 people there. Through there, Wes said that he had about 300 stickers of the little badges, and that they gave them all away. Wes is also working on a grant to be submitted for AEDs in all cars. The ladder truck for the fire department has passed its 5-year inspection and testing. The street department, they're continuing to move items in and getting the utilities finishing that and getting them installed and hooked up. We're waiting to be notified regarding the paving and when that will be scheduled. And they continue to do mowing and weed spraying along the right-of-ways that are ours. So I will say just a word about that, is that this is always an issue, is that that if you go, they come into town, but it's always, because I always start looking and noticing that and having that discussion with Jason about that, of doing it, because I always weigh it, how much is it worth doing it ourselves just to get people kind of off of that issue compared to getting them doing it themselves and waiting for MoDOT to come in and do it, because we have no idea. We have no idea. We can always put in and ask, but as far as when it has been discussed to get repaid, reimbursed, they will laugh at us. I've experienced that with Jason, is that if we mow it, will we get paid back? And he just laughed and walked away. So, and that was the chief of the shop up here. So, but I'll get with Jason
Could we
about doing that.
maybe put out a Facebook ad that, that just says informational? This is a MoDOT item. We've received
Certainly.
complaints, but those are coming to the wrong folks. If you want to voice a concern, here's the proper channel to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it clearly looks like the city isn't doing their job.
Yeah.
So,
And that turn through White Park looks like it might be us, and it's not.
Yeah.
So the areas that we cover, we do that because it is on our park, but the areas that we don't mow, that's not. So the pool is very busy. Summer school has ended. For the parks, smaller repairs in many areas going on in the parks. There's a joint meeting with the fencing companies and the school district to discuss fencing options recommendation for Robinson School walking trail area. I texted Travis. The park benches are in, and they've been in for a couple weeks, but they just have not had the time to get them installed.
okay.
They will get them installed. So I would ask is that if you see any of that kind of stuff, don't hesitate. Give the park department or whoever the department heads a call and stuff, or give me a holler and stuff. I'd rather, quite honestly, get that information to you and stuff early instead of here. So construction updates for the rec center. Steel framing is continuing. We're scheduling a site visit for the park board and the council in the coming weeks. They've been working on getting the walking track installed. Furniture proposals, that is completed. We're waiting on SAP to bring that forward for the final proposal. The rec center director, Anthony, he has been on board since July 1. He's been working on the training for Day Smart, working on populating the park facilities into Day Smart, working on market comparisons for event rental rates, program fees rates, event fees and rates, membership fees, park amenities rental rates, and advertising fees and packages. Our intent is that we're going to take that to the park board first, to have those discussions with them, to kind of work out the details of that, and then bring it to their recommendations to the council for final approval as we get ready to put those in place. We're working with SAP to discuss equipment packages for the gym equipment. I know that Stephen has started that conversations with different vendors, and he's been working with Anthony on that as well. as far as what ones are out there and around the area and around in Missouri, to start looking at that so that we can start having some discussions about that. But we haven't had a meeting on that just yet. Tony and Teresa, I'll let you know when that happens. The SRF wastewater treatment plant rehab project, the bids received are being discussed with DNR, and the recommended bid should come to the council at the next meeting for consideration of for award.
John, can I add something real quick? Councilwoman Pettit, the question that you had earlier about the grant funding on the invoice from the attorney, so that was actually in relation to the state revolving fund for this wastewater project.
Okay.
The city attorney has to review the ownership, proof of ownership, and sign off on that to verify it. And
Okay.
so it was in relation to that funding that those charges
Okay.
were related to.
I was curious what grant it was for.
Sure, yeah, so that's what it's tied to. I
Okay.
apologize, I'd forgotten about that being on
Okay.
that invoice.
And that was a lengthy project.
It was very lengthy. I won't go into the details, but it's handled now.
We've handled that, had that land, the city has had that land for a substantial amount of time. And so we had to go all the way back into the 1800s to be able to get information about that.
There's no actual formal deed to the property, so we had to find a historical chain of things that prove ownership, and then he drafted a statement that hopefully will keep that from being an issue ever again, and we have retained that now with the filing.
All of that is required because we are getting federal funding through this program, and that is part of the Relocation Act of 1974, as far as how we came in, that we didn't strong arm anybody to get that property. Airport, just the quarterly meeting, nothing to report on that. The finance office had nothing to report. By way of reminder, the MML conference is September 15th through the 18th. Kami has all of you, I believe, scheduled for that. So if you are not going to make it, please let her know as quickly as you can so that we can get that canceled for you, the hotel rooms and the conference fees, and we can get that canceled for you. Council, we tried to look at dates as far as what we could do to finish the strategic planning session, and we were unable to get some consensus on the time for that. So I guess at that point, I would kind of leave it to the council to tell us when you would like to get that done.
So when do you anticipate us starting the budget work session?
Probably the week after the MML conference.
Okay. So we've got the month of August. What if we split up what's remaining and come to council 45 minutes early, starting at 5:15, and we can get through schedule 1 or 2 or however that works out, the math works out, and the meetings that we have left, and we just come early until we get it done.
I think I think that's a great idea.
I don't
You
have
could work
any
with whoever
objection to
department
that, but
head would be-
if a department head, if something comes up that, I mean, my goal was for all of us to sit and work through that process, you know, from that standpoint. And just like there's certain things that you guys want to talk about or bring up and everything, is that that's great, no objections to that whatsoever. But as long as, having all of our staff be there as part of that and be part of that conversation and stuff like that. That was our objective and everything. So as long as the council understands that we're not going to be prepared to discuss anything, if there's a specific item that is brought up and one of the department heads that are not there not there, then we're not going to be ready to respond to it.
I think that's fair. I mean, you guys do get the opportunity every other Tuesday, or at least every Tuesday, I don't know, to have your department meetings, and you guys get to cross pollinate information. I think it would work. Everyone's welcome to join. It'll be an open session, so
Sure.
But maybe that would work with folks to schedule department head wise as well of what's left. So, you know, instead of boxing them into one date. So
Okay. And I understand that, but also at the same time, it's like, I mean, we're trying to manage 15, 16 schedules and everybody, and it's more than that because staff are working out childcare, they're working out things with their spouses and that
Right.
type of thing.
Yeah.
And so, from that standpoint, I mean, that was that was a concern that was shared with me and Carrie about that. So I guess going forward, when we have work sessions, staff would request that the council come to a determination of how long that they would like to work, and stuff, so that we know we're working towards till this time and stuff. It made it seem like we were hurrying, but we weren't. Jessica even said, hey, I just get really nervous and start talking fast when I get nervous and stuff like that.
So I'll
So-
go ahead and apologize, but as I read that room and saw an employee suffering from a back injury, and I saw and heard where people were going out of town, and there was 5 more left, that's all on me. And I don't want them to think that I didn't care, and maybe I cared too much.
Yeah, and we'd
I
already been
actually
there.
took a vacation day. I
Yeah.
didn't care if we went till midnight, didn't
Yeah.
matter one bit at all.
And I mean, I think we'd already been there 3 hours, so,
But
you know.
we've been there about 2.
5:30
I
to.
thought-
So, well, that's
Let's
irrelevant,
not do that.
really. It doesn't matter. Going forward, just problem solving of how we get these presentations to us, you know, is what I'd like to focus on. I hear you on having a dedicated time, and I think we can do that in the future. But as far as getting what we have left finished, is there a real objection to doing them before? I think that would give staff some options for you guys to schedule who we have left. We have 2 or maybe 3 meetings prior to budget,
5.
right?
Oh, I see what
2
you're saying. I'm sorry.
2
Yeah,
meetings.
I missed
So we have 5, and they would have 2 to pick from. Yeah, and if it doesn't work, I don't want someone missing a plan. You know, let me know, and we can figure something else out.
Okay.
Or we could even put it on an agenda if it's later, where it helps them, or whatever, you know.
Okay. And also the budget work session. Like I said, we'll be looking at that. So from that standpoint, what would council like to do? Would you like to work in the evening, or would you like to schedule a Saturday where we get started and power through? So whatever you guys would like to do.
How many hours do you think you're looking at?
It usually takes us 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, why don't we look at, if you don't mind, sending out kind of the poll, and we can gauge and see if there's any
I-
consensus on a
Happy to
budget?
do that as long as the council responds in a timely manner.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that what, when
If
we're
someone
not-
doesn't respond, John, let me know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're sensing frustration, council, you are.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is that at the end of the day, we have staff that get up at 2:00 in the morning, and they show up and they do their job, and they don't worry about what time it is or whatever. They come and they do their job, and they show up and they do it. And they're here till whenever. I have to tell them when there's snowing and stuff like that, go home, sleep for a few hours and stuff. Our staff are willing to work whatever's requested of them by you, bottom line. And so respectfully, I'm just asking, and I think the department heads are asking for the same level of commitment back to that, is that they're ready to do whatever needs to be done, however it needs to be done, however long it needs to be done. And so, from that standpoint, I think that they're asking for that same level of commitment from the council. Because this, at the end of the day, this is a multi-million-dollar operation. And we're coming to you, and this is information that you're wanting. We're happy to present it to you and stuff like that. But when staff feel like they're being brushed off, that it's not important or anything else like that, that's discouraging to staff. And I'm just telling you how I feel.
I think that's misunderstanding, because I think that when the meeting was shortened after almost 3 hours the other night, I think it was trying to be respectful of somebody preparing a presentation, and, you know, we have already worked like an 8-hour day, and then we've been there another 3. I mean, it's hard to absorb.
And staff had been working on those presentations
So-
for well over 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
So, you know, I hear you, I think we all hear you, we're gonna chalk it up to miscommunication, and we'll look to, you know, be
So
more-
Kami will put that out as far as looking at some different times and see what works. Employee health insurance, we're thank you that we got that resolved this evening, and we really appreciate that. Ozark Fiber has begun work for this fiber install in town as well. And I know that there's been some issues with that Carrie has been working through. Carrie, would you want to visit with that a little bit?
Well, I'm kind of in the middle of it, but, we have had a little bit of rocky stuff starting out in terms of the actual physicality of it. They've been fantastic to work with, but they've had some questions about our street cut fees, and they've had some questions about, how much we're charging for those in relation to the size of cut that they're doing since they are boring. So we're working through that and trying to consider some adjustments for that. They're just doing a 6-inch round pilot hole in the street rather than cutting all the way across because they're boring. So we're looking at that and having some conversations to try to kind of meet them in the middle on that if we can, because they're not actually cutting the whole street. In addition to that, we've had some concerns with work starting a little bit quicker than we would like in relation to when the locates were called in. So we're having conversations with them about that today. So far, they've been good to meet us in the middle wherever we need them to, but we're still working on that time frame in terms of how quick we can start after we put in a locate request. So if you hear any concerns about that, please let me know, but know that we are in the process of working with them on that to make sure we minimize any damage to current utility lines.
Great. That's all I got. Okay,
I have one other item.
Please.
This was not on your agenda. We typically haven't put it on the agenda in the past, but we have received a request for the Hound Dog Dinner Scrimmage and Auction that the football program puts on every year at the school. So the last couple of years, we've done the corporate table for $200 that seats 8 people. It is Friday, August 16th at 5 o'clock, and they're asking if the council would like to have a table for the city again this year. So we just need some direction on whether you'd like us to do that or not.
August 16th?
Yes.
Should be available. So I'd say there'd probably be enough of us, if not a plus one, we can fill a table probably.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to support the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll move forward with that.
Okay. If nothing else, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second that?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We're
Who
adjourned.
seconded that?
Thank you, audience.
I did, but Tony and I at the same time, if you want.
I was like, when you go at the same time, I'm like,
So anything